The story begins with a giant wolf raging at the person in front of him. It seems that the wolf continues to rage while the man in front of him says that he will not die in that place. The man held his sword firmly because he knew that now he was really in a dangerous situation. Even so, his spirit was not extinguished, and while staring intently, he said again that he would not die in that place. It was explained that half a century ago a great earthquake occurred in the world, and it also caused a dungeon to appear. Monsters emerged from within the dungeon, and the monsters were immune to conventional human weapons. Even so, there are some people who get supernatural powers called skills. People who gain skills are highly respected because they can defeat monsters and level up to become stronger. These people are called awakened, and now one of the people who got the skill is fighting with the goblin monster in front of him. That person named Kisaragi, he has reached level 4, and the skill he has is imitation. Kisaragi shouted loudly, and there he tried to attack the goblin in front of him. The goblin was immediately in pain because their Kisaragi managed to slash him even though it did not cause fatal injuries. Kisaragi's imitation skill failed to activate. Kisaragi, who saw that, immediately gritted his teeth because there he felt annoyed that his skills could not be used. It seems that the goblin is now shouting loudly and is preparing to hit Kisaragi, who was in front of him. But suddenly someone said something. That person over there said that he took out the fireball skill to balloon his goblin monster. A huge explosion immediately occurred in that place, and it seemed that the goblin was immediately burned because of the skill. It seems that the skill came from someone else, and he said that Kisaragi was very weak because he was even overwhelmed when fighting low-level monsters. That person named Todo Kakeru, he has reached level 15, and he has the Flame Master skill. Then with a cold stare, he said that Kisaragi was really like trash. Kisaragi also said that Tudo was an awakened who attracted world attention because Tudo's strength was quite extraordinary. It is explained that when the dungeon appears, humanity also gets supernatural powers, and these powers determine the strength or weakness of an awakened. Tudo was there to tell Kisaragi not to daydream. He said that Kisaragi should collect magic stones so that he could be of little use to his team. Kisaragi, who heard that, could only remain silent while nodding. It is said that this Tudo is a flame master who has a strong skill to be able to control fire freely. Kisaragi's own skill is imitation, and that skill makes him only able to imitate the skills of monsters he touches once. While taking the magic crystal there, Kisaragi also said that the possibility of his skill succeeding was very low. While lamenting his fate, he also thought that, in other words, his skill was useless because it was not as great as Tudo's. Some people who were there also said that Kisaragi's skills were useless because his skills could not be used to fight properly. Even so, Tudo still embraced Kisaragi, and he said that they shouldn't because they were all Tudo's colleagues there staring sharply. And suddenly he said that Kisaragi struggled with his trash skills while saying Oni-chan to himself. Kisaragi, who heard that, immediately fell silent, and then he said his reason for becoming a hunter. Kisaragi said that he fought hard to cure his only family, namely Miu, who has a congenital disease. Kisaragi said that he wanted to get an elixir where the medicine could cure all existing diseases. The people in the den immediately asked about what they were going to do at this point. While stepping on the corpse of a monster, Tudo said that their destination now was the monster cave. Tudo stared intently, and he said that now they would go in there to steal all the treasures that were in the dungeon. Tudo unleashed his powerful skills. Tudo shouted loudly, and while releasing his skill, he also said that now the damned goblins were burned by his power. Tudo's level went up because there he hunted goblins quite significantly. Kisaragi, who saw that, could only stare sharply, and he said that the situation really sucked. While watching Todo, Kisaragi said that they can level up by killing monsters, but he can't do that alone. Kisaragi said that even though he participated in the party, almost all the monsters have been eliminated by Todo and the others. Kisaragi could only remain silent, and he felt annoyed with the current situation. Todo and the others themselves currently look happy because it turns out that in that place there really is a treasure warehouse. Tudo's two colleagues were immediately delighted while continuing to pay attention to the gold. Tudo himself there moved in another direction, making Kisaragi a little confused by this. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurred there. Tudo laughed loudly and he said that he didn't expect it because there he found an unexpected bonus room. It is explained that in bonus rooms there are usually expensive and powerful items. But behind that there is a possibility that the bonus room is trapped so that it can cause death for the Awakeners. Tudo and his colleagues were happy, but even so they immediately asked about traps that might endanger them. Tado also told them not to worry because there he already had a good idea for this. Tudo also came towards Kisaragi, who was holding the crystal from the collection. Then suddenly there Tudo slapped him, making Kisaragi in pain with this. Kisaragi fell to the floor. Then while watching Kisaragi in pain, Tudo said that this time he apologized to Kisaragi. Tudo choked Kisaragi's neck and he said that now he wanted to do something for their good. Tudo also stared horribly, and he said again that now Kisaragi had to die for him and everything. Kisaragi, who heard that, immediately fell silent, and there he was confused by what Tudo had just said. Tudo's colleagues also said that it seemed like Tudo wanted to use Kisaragi as bait, and they said that it might be too much. But Tudo smiled horribly and said that it was the most effective way to utilize the useless Kisaragi. Tudo immediately opened the bonus room door while being watched by his colleagues. Tudo kicked Kisaragi inside, and he said that he was grateful that Kisaragi had become a sacrifice for them. Tudo smiled sweetly, and then he said that they would meet again later if Kisaragi was still alive. Kisaragi, who heard that, was immediately upset, and he said that Tudo's words really upset him. Kisaragi was upset, and he said that the current situation was really very unlucky. Suddenly, there was a very bright light. Kisaragi, who saw the holly, was immediately surprised, and he tried to hold back the bright light. Kisaragi opened his eyes slowly. It seems that he is in another place, and he wonders about where he is now. Kisaragi began to stand up, and there he noticed the surrounding place he was visiting. Suddenly, Kisaragi's body was terrified because at this time he felt a very extraordinary power. While being visited by the monster, Kisaragi explained that the dungeon has its own level. Starting from the beginner level, then intermediate level, advanced, and also the hero level. Then the pinnacle of difficulty is the mythological level. And now the enemy of the mythological level appears, which is a large wolf monster, which is a god-eater Fenrir with level 80. The mythology level wolf monster appeared, so Kisaragi thought that the current situation was really absurd. Kisaragi also got up while laughing in fear. But even so, he still clenched his fists, and he said that he could not die at this time. Kisaragi said that one day his parents suddenly died. Then the only family he has is Miyu. Kisaragi's eyes are burning, and he continues to say that he cannot die in that place. Kisaragi moved quickly as he was immediately on top of the monster and was ready to attack with the sword he had. The wolf monster immediately roared loudly at Kisaragi. Kisaragi, who felt it, was immediately pushed, but he still tried to reach the monster. The monster itself moved quickly, and his movement immediately made Kisaragi bounce due to his very different strength. Kisaragi's body bounced off the wall that was there. It looks like his mouth is bleeding, and again his imitation skill fails to imitate the monster's skill. Kisaragi immediately thought that he might die as the monster now moved quickly and prepared to attack Kisaragi, who had come towards him. Kisaragi did not give up there. He got up and stood up while trying to be strong with the current situation. Kisaragi remembered his sister, and he said that he was sorry for being a very useless brother. Kisaragi's eyes are now filled with fluids because he was injured quite badly due to the blow from the wolf. Suddenly, there is a voice that tells you to look down. The place immediately shook violently, making Kisaragi even more surprised. Kisaragi's eyes stared sharply because now he was confused by what was happening in front of him. Seen at this time, Fenrir, the monster wolf, bowed down, and it made Kisaragi confused about what happened exactly. The person who spoke earlier immediately thanked Fenrir. He was there downstairs. It seems that the person who came has long ears, and he said to keep Fenrir calm. It turns out that the one who came was a beautiful woman, and she said that Kisaragi was a valuable guest for her. The woman came elegantly and also said that she welcomed the arrival of Kisaragi, who came to her castle. Kisaragi, who saw that, was confused because he did not know who was in front of him. The woman was silent and she continued to watch Kisaragi, who was now in pain in front of her. The woman smiled and said that it seemed like Kisaragi was calmer than she thought. Even so, the woman said that everything would be impossible if Kisaragi was still weak like that. The woman's hand is pointed at Kisaragi's face, making Kisaragi confused about what she's going to do. The woman also brought her lips to Kisaragi's ear, and she said that it was a gift from her. A bright light appeared, and the light also made a very beautiful magic circle. The woman said that Kisaragi accepted her gift happily. Kisaragi's eyes immediately widened because he felt tremendous pain. Kisaragi's imitation skill evolved into an imitator. Kisaragi was confused because even now he obtained a large amount of psi energy, so that his level would increase significantly. Kisaragi was shocked because now his level rose to level 25 and his skill had evolved into all imitators. Kisaragi was confused by what was happening while the woman continued to stare intently, and as she chuckled at the confused Kisaragi. While watching Kisaragi in pain, she said that she would now leave. It seems that the woman is emitting a dark aura. Kisaragi, who saw the holly, immediately screamed, and he said for the woman to explain about what happened exactly. The woman smiles again, and she tells Kisaragi to defeat the monster with his power now. The woman smiles, and there she hopes that Kisaragi can complete the mythology degree he is currently undergoing. The woman finally disappears while Kisaragi is still in pain and confused about what happened. Fenrir, the monster wolf, roars again, so Kisaragi says that he can't win against the monster. Fenrir is seen pointing his claws at Kisaragi. Fenrir attacked quickly, but luckily there Kisaragi managed to block the attack with the weapon he had. A notification appears and tells if Kisaragi's imitator skill is active. Kisaragi bounced back, and there he was confused by the notification that had appeared suddenly. A notification was seen telling that Kisaragi was now copying the skill of Fenrir, who had attacked him earlier. Kisaragi himself was unconscious, and with his exhausted body he was confused about how to defeat Fenrir in front of him. Fenrir is currently still standing firmly, and Fenrir continues to stare at Kisaragi, who is the only human in the place at this time. Kisaragi was suddenly surprised by the situation that occurred. He looks surprised because now he has managed to copy the god Ether skill of Fenrir in front of him. Kisaragi gets a divine power skill where he can increase his physical abilities to the maximum level. Kisaragi got new hope, and he said that maybe he could win because he had gotten the skill. Kisaragi also looked sharply at him and said that the use of his skills was only 1 minute, so everything was very limited. Fenrir let out his roar again while Kisaragi now said that he would use his skill at the right time to defeat Fenrir. Fenrir over there moved quickly. Kisaragi, who saw that, immediately compensated for it, and he also moved freely while avoiding the attacks launched by Fenrir. Kisaragi moved like a butterfly, and he was able to avoid all of Fenrir's attacks unlike before. Kisaragi said that now his body was light, and he knew that it could happen because he had leveled up significantly. Kisaragi can now rival Fenrir, and even now he can also copy Fenrir's skills, which are certainly very strong. It was explained that Kisaragi's previous imitation skill could only copy target skills with a low probability and could only be used once. But now it seems that he has an imitator skill where the possibility of copying his skills is 100%, and the skills he gets will not just disappear. Fenrir himself is currently raging. He releases a very extraordinary aura that makes Kisaragi quite difficult because of this. Kisaragi was in pain there. His body was affected by the power of Fenrir's divine wolf dominance, which made his movements hampered. Kisaragi is really in pain. His body can't move, and even he can't breathe properly at this point. But even so, now the divine wolf dominant skill was successfully copied by him. The powerful skill was successfully copied thanks to the imitation that had evolved into an imitator. Kisaragi, who was in pain, was a little happy, because now he knew that he would become stronger if he continued to gain direct experience. Fenrir is now preparing to unleash her power, while Kisaragi is there saying that she wants to cry because she feels happy and sad at the same time. Kisaragi was suddenly surprised when she felt something being released by Fenrir. Fenrir is currently on a rampage, and he released a skill called Vanarkard, where the skill releases a strong scratch towards Kisaragi at this time. Kisaragi himself now looks to be hit by the deadly attack from Fenrir. He looked sharp because he knew that if he was hit by the attack, then it was certain that he would die on the spot. Kisaragi quickly dodged the deadly attack. Fenrir's attack caused a strong explosion and even created a tremendous attack mark. With his body bleeding, Kisaragi also said that if the attack had hit, then he would have been hopeless. Fenrir himself is currently still raging there. He is raging again and preparing to attack Kisaragi again with his strength. The two of them finally clashed with each other's strength there. They continued to do so in the hope that one of them could lose easily. Even so, Kisaragi knew that he could be in danger because what he was fighting now was a mythological level monster that was clearly very strong in the world. Kisaragi there thought that if he could copy Fenrir's skill just now, then maybe he would die when hit by his attack. But even so, Kisaragi has divine power skills, and maybe he can use them to withstand the attacks of Fenrir's very strong skills. Fenrir also took out his deadly claw skill, and there he used the skill quickly towards Kisaragi. Kisaragi himself there immediately shouted loudly, and he said that he would try instead of waiting for his death. Kisaragi activated his divine power skill, and it made all the power he had reached the maximum level for 1 minute. A big explosion occurred because Kisaragi had resisted Fenrir's attack strongly using her divine power skill. A notification appears, and the notification tells if Kisaragi managed to copy Fenrir's skill because he was hit earlier. It looks like Kisaragi appears horrible, and now he is ready to slaughter the Fenrir in front of him. The duration of the divine power skill is still 60 seconds away. Kisaragi himself now raises his sword that has been coated by Fenrir's skill. There he prepared with his stance. And while swinging his sword, Kisaragi also said that he was now using Vanargan's skill to restore Fenrir's skill that had attacked him earlier. The skill that Kisaragi launched moved quickly, and it seemed that now the skill was coming towards Fenrir, who was still in front of him. Fenrir couldn't dodge, and that caused him to be hit by the powerful attack launched by Kisaragi just now. Kisaragi's divine power left 50 seconds of lag. Kisaragi immediately moved quickly. There he moved quickly and continued to launch attacks on the Fenrir that was in front of him. Fenrir, who kept getting hit, was annoyed, and he immediately roared loudly at Kisaragi, who kept hitting him. Kisaragi didn't care, and he quickly hit the head of Fenrir, who was a mythological god. Kisaragi kicked Fenrir strongly, and with a face full of enthusiasm, he said that maybe he could defeat Fenrir, who was still alive. Kisaragi's divine power has 30 seconds left. Kisaragi did not sing time, and he said that now he must be able to defeat Fenrir in less than 30 seconds. He continues to attack Fenrir with maximum speed and strength. There, he continues to attack because there is little time left. The power of the two of them clashed strongly and even caused an electrical explosion in the place. Kisaragi retreated to the back because he was currently trying to launch a deadly attack on Fenrir, who was in front of him. Unexpectedly, it turns out that at this time they are both shouting and already preparing to perform Vanargan attacks to kill each other. The Vanargan power of the two of them also clashed with each other, and the two attacks immediately caused a very strong effect. Both of them did not want to give up and continued to add their strength in order to defeat each other. Fenrir's Vanargan attack is much stronger, and it seems that Fenrir's attack managed to defeat Kisaragi's strength, so that now Kisaragi will be hit. Kisaragi, who could not resist the attack, immediately moved quickly, and he tried to avoid the deadly attack. Kisaragi managed to dodge, and he said that they had a level difference, so that was what caused his attack to be defeated by Fenrir. Even so, Kisaragi did not give up, and he tried to move back. Kisaragi moved quickly towards Fenrir, and he said that now he would try to hit Fenrir directly in order to defeat him. Fenrir, who saw that, immediately opened his mouth wide, and he immediately prepared to release a powerful skill from his mouth. Kisaragi is currently still moving quickly towards Fenrir, and he is a little surprised by Fenrir's behavior that will launch his attack. Kisaragi said that the situation now was very serious because he might be hit by a dangerous attack from Fenrir. Fenrir was there immediately launching a strong attack on Kisaragi, while now Kisaragi's divine power only had 8 seconds left. Kisaragi immediately gritted his teeth because there he knew that the attack was quite dangerous for him, who now wanted to defeat Fenrir. A huge explosion occurred and now Kisaragi's divine power remained 7 seconds. Kisaragi managed to dodge the attack and now looks like he is on top of Fenrir while preparing to attack. Fenrir does the same and now he roars again while preparing to attack Kisaragi. With his strength remaining 5 seconds, Kisaragi immediately raised his sword. He quickly threw the sword at Fenrir and said that Fenrir would not be able to defeat him. Fenrir was immediately in pain because it turned out that the attack he launched earlier hit Fenrir, who was under him. Kisaragi pulled the sword back. Kisaragi is now seen on top of Fenrir's body and he is preparing to launch another attack on Fenrir in front of him. Kisaragi raises the sword with both hands with only 2 seconds left of his divine power, and he says that now everything will end because he will exert all his strength. Kisaragi swung his sword strongly in the middle of the divine power that only had 1 second left. But suddenly there was a voice telling him that it was all over. It looks like Kisaragi's attack will now hit Fenrir, but the attack was stopped and Kisaragi's body could only tremble without being able to hurt Fenrir further. Kisaragi's imitator skill is active, and it looks like Kisaragi is currently getting a skill called world play. It turns out that the one who came was the woman earlier, and she said that it was a very extraordinary battle, so she thanked Kisaragi for his hard work. The woman immediately snapped her fingers. While looking at Kisaragi and Fenrir, she said that the battle was over, and she invited them to continue the event by drinking tea peacefully. Kisaragi himself is currently still confused, and while watching Fenrir there, he asked about who the woman is and why she did that earlier to Kisaragi. The beautiful woman immediately said that she did it to fill her free time. The woman said that not many adventurers or hunters came to that place. There she said that adventurers would usually be immediately defeated by Fenrir. But even so, she was surprised that someone like Kisaragi appeared, so it was very pleasant for her. The woman approached Kisaragi saying that she had a request. It seems that the woman is approaching the injured Kisaragi, and she says that she wants to see the outside world freely. The woman said that the outside world has a thin energy so that she cannot move freely, and that's why she wants Kisaragi's help. Kisaragi, who heard that, casually and easily agreed to the woman's request. The woman was confused because she did not expect that Kisaragi would agree to her request so easily. The woman smiled sweetly and she said that she didn't expect it because Kisaragi answered her question so quickly. Kisaragi also said that before that he experienced many things that were incomprehensible and unbelievable. But even so, he is happy because he was able to fight Fenrir thanks to the help of this woman. While remembering his battle there, Kisaragi finally decided that cooperating with this woman must be the right decision. Kisaragi wiped his sweat and wounds and said that he would definitely help the woman to see the world freely. Kisaragi's vision suddenly blurred, and now the woman looks blurred by his own vision. Kisaragi finally fell right into the woman's lap, and she said that it seemed like Kisaragi had used too much power. Kisaragi, who was in such a state, also asked about the person's name. The woman smiled sweetly and said that her name was Loki. Kisaragi finally fainted in that place. Then Loki said that he was happy to meet Kisaragi. In the end, Kisaragi's vision became dark. And when he opened his eyes now, he was in a different place. Kisaragi wakes up in a hospital bed and he says that now he doesn't recognize where he is. Kisaragi woke up because there was someone calling him, while Kisaragi was immediately confused by who this person was. The person is a woman, and she says that Kisaragi forgot her quickly. Looks like the woman is a boy, and he says that Kisaragi is a cruel man for not recognizing him. It turns out that the woman is Loki, who has become a very cute. It starts with Loki smiling, and it seems that he has now turned into a very cute little girl. Kisaragi was still confused, and he asked about whether it was true that the little girl was Loki. Loki immediately got out of his seat. Loki approached Kisaragi and said that it was her and she now intends to have fun in the real world, but Kisaragi fell down, so he must take responsibility. Loki unleashes her beautiful monstrous aura, and she says that Kisaragi must accept her punishment for making her bored. After Loki calmed down a little there, Kisaragi immediately said that Loki should tell him about what happened after he fainted. Loki also told him that after Kisaragi passed out, they teleported to the beginner dungeon. Kisaragi was a little confused, and there he asked again about how the two of them could go to the hospital at this time. Loki also explained that she used her powers, and while using her powers, she also said that when Kisaragi fainted, there was a hunter, and the hunter immediately helped them to go to that place. Kisaragi there was getting confused. He said that Loki could teleport, so she should just go straight without having to ask the hunter for help. Loki also said that she was a god and said that she needed a lot of energy to maintain her physical form. But when she arrived on Earth, Loki's strength was limited, so that he became a little girl, and she also needed Kisaragi's help to maintain her physical form. Kisaragi himself even said that maybe Loki would be arrested by the police because now she has the appearance of a little girl. Loki was annoyed, and she quickly hit Kisaragi with her tiny hand. Kisaragi, who was in pain, immediately asked about why Loki helped him. Loki, who heard that, immediately smiled and said that they would talk about it later. Kisaragi was confused, while there is seen snapping her fingers because she is about to do something. It seems that at this time, Loki is releasing her powers again, so Kisaragi asks about where Loki is going at this time. Loki smiled sweetly and said that she would be rude if she interrupted family time. Loki finally disappeared while Kisaragi was confused by what Loki had just said. Suddenly, Kisaragi was surprised because now he heard something from the direction of his hospital room door. Kisaragi's younger sister came, and she immediately called Kisaragi, who was her older brother. Kisaragi's younger sister, named Mayu, could only be silent because she was a little surprised by the situation that happened at this time. Mayu immediately ran towards Kisaragi while continuing to call him. Mayu there was sad, and she said that Kisaragi had been sleeping for a week, and even the doctor also said that Kisaragi would never wake up again. However, it seems that Kisaragi is currently very healthy, and he said that he was sorry for making Mayu worry by being unconscious for a week. Mayu had tears in her eyes, and she said that she definitely wouldn't be able to live if her older brother wasn't in the world. Kisaragi became strong again and told Mayu to calm down because he was not going anywhere, and the two of them would continue to be a family even though they only lived together. Mayu was immediately moved, and she smiled while saying yes to the words of Kisaragi just now. Mayu herself at this time immediately prepared to leave again because it turned out that she had business that had to be completed. Kisaragi could only sigh, and he said that Mayu was really a busy person. Loki appeared again, and he asked about whether the woman was Kisaragi's younger sister. Kisaragi also said that if it was true, he said that Mayu was the only sister he had. Kisaragi explained that Mayu had a congenital disease, and she became weak in health. Mayu has a weak body, but even so, Mayu always tries to look tough in front of others. The doctor himself said that Mayu had an incurable disease, and that's why Kisaragi tried hard to get into the dungeon to find an elixir that might cure Mayu's disease. Loki, who heard that, immediately looked cold, and he said that the disease of his younger sister Saragi could not be cured even with elixirs. Kisaragi's eyes immediately looked sharp, and he immediately asked about what Loki had just said. Loki was there to tell that most likely Kisaragi's younger sister was hit by a curse from the dungeon, and that was what made her sister weak. Kisaragi did not understand this, while Loki said that Kisaragi's younger sister was hit by a curse from someone's skill. Loki said that she did not know who did the curse, but certainly the person who did the curse skill was a mythological entity equal to her. Kisaragi was a little surprised, and he said that meant he had to defeat the god and break the curse that made Mayu like that. Loki said that if that was true, he said that Kisaragi had to become very strong so that he could defeat the god in order to remove Mayu's curse. It seems that at this time, Loki was surprised when she saw Kisaragi in front of her. Kisaragi is currently staring intently, and he says that he will defeat God and remove Mayu's curse, so there he wants to cooperate with Loki further. Loki, who heard that, immediately noticed Kisaragi at this time, and she finally agreed to the words of Kisaragi. Loki there said that later they would work together while playing because even Loki was also interested in the entity whose curse had an effect on Mayu. Kisaragi, who heard that, was immediately happy, and he thanked Loki for being willing to cooperate further with him. Loki also said that now they have to train hard in the dungeon every day because she knows that if he wants to enter the mythology-level dungeon, then Kisaragi must have outstanding achievements. But suddenly Loki was silent because their Kisaragi said that now he had to go to school first. Kisaragi himself goes to Amatsuki Academy, which was founded specifically for people who want to become adventurers. Kisaragi pointed his hand at Loki, and Loki said that it didn't matter as long as Kisaragi could fight and fulfill his pleasure desires. It looks like the two of them are high-fiving each other because later they will both work together to benefit each other. The story changes to 3 days later in the Japanese dungeon organization, and it appears that at this time Kisaragi is not allowed to enter the dungeon because he is alone. Kisaragi also said that it was as he thought, while the organization said that Kisaragi should consider the level he had. The organization said that Kisaragi has a low level, so it is likely that he can only defeat small-level monsters. The organization said that if Kisaragi and the monsters' levels were the same, maybe they would be comparable. But all that will be dangerous because Kisaragi's level and the monsters in the dungeon are so different that Kisaragi will definitely be defeated. There the organization said that Kisaragi was only level 4, and if Kisaragi entered the goblin's lair, then at least he needed to become level 5 first. Looks like Kisaragi's ID card is currently still level 4. Loki, who saw Kisaragi being rejected, was immediately upset, and there she said that maybe the woman in front of him should be destroyed. Loki looks at Kisaragi because it turns out that his words just now might be done at this time. Kisaragi also said that it could not be done because at this time he decided not to show his original ID card. It looks like Kisaragi's original ID card is now level 25 because it turns out that the ID card can automatically change when the owner levels up. Even so, Kisaragi covered it up there. He said that he hid it because if he knew, then everything could be a problem. Loki also said that Kisaragi was very good, or maybe even Kisaragi was just a coward who didn't want his strength to be known by others. Kisaragi also said that he just didn't want to make a scene, so he invited Loki to leave. Loki smiled and said that she had some advice that could be used. While smiling sweetly there, the little girl also said that Kisaragi should use the wordplay skill so that Kisaragi could influence the organization's guards. Kisaragi also thought that it was a skill he copied from Loki, but there he said that using skills should be prohibited in that place. Kisaragi continued to think hard, and in the end he said if he would try the advice given by Loki just now. Kisaragi came towards the person with a smile, and it immediately made the guard a little confused. With his beautiful blue eyes, Kisaragi also activated wordplay, and he said that he wanted to enter the dungeon alone. Kisaragi's wordplay skills were active and made the person in front of him obey Kisaragi's orders. The guard looks blank, and he says that right now he will process it, so the two of them will soon be given access to enter the dungeon. Kisaragi also said that his skill would definitely not be discovered, and even Loki also explained that wordplay would not be realized by others when used. While smiling beautifully there, Loki also said that this could happen because the skill belonged to Loki, who was a mythological god. Kisaragi, who heard that, immediately smiled nervously because it turned out that Loki was indeed very strong, even though sometimes his behavior was a bit strange. Loki also continued to pay attention to Kisaragi, and there she thought that she did not understand why now Kisaragi did not give respect to her who was very strong. It seems that the two of them are now preparing to enter the dungeon provided. They both came to a place called the Dungeon Gate, where the gate was connected to and various dungeons in the world. Kisaragi inserted the ID card into the machine there. The dungeon gate was immediately opened, and now they were preparing to enter the dungeon to be conquered. Kisaragi entered with Loki, and Kisaragi said that he didn't care about any monsters he would fight. There he said that he would try hard to remove the curse on Mayu. Kisaragi stares intently, and he says that even gods he will kill and behead in order to cure his sister's illness. It seems that they are now entering the goblin's lair on the first floor of the dungeon. Loki asked about what they were going to do. Then Kisaragi said that now he wanted to see how much power he had at this point. When they were chatting, suddenly someone came with a terrible voice. It turns out that what came was a goblin, and this goblin had bloodthirsty red eyes even though his level was still 5. Kisaragi immediately prepared to take his sword. While raising his sword there, he also said that now he would try his skills on the goblin in front of him. Kisaragi immediately moved towards the goblin, who had come with a terrible sound. It seems that the goblin was hit by his attack, so that the goblin immediately screamed loudly because he felt tremendous pain. The goblin finally died instantly with fluids pouring out. Loki, who saw this, immediately underestimated Kisaragi, and he said that it was natural because level 5 monsters must be very easy to defeat by Kisaragi. Kisaragi also said that if that was not why there, he said that he was very happy because it was the first time he managed to defeat a monster alone. Kisaragi currently looks quite happy because now he has reached level 25, so he can defeat the monsters alone. Kisaragi remembers that his level was able to rise thanks to the help of Loki, who gave him a lot of magic energy. Kisaragi there remembers that previously he could not defeat goblins who had level 5. But now everything has changed because even Kisaragi can defeat the goblin very easily. Kisaragi immediately thanked Loki because there he explained that he could become stronger thanks to the help of Loki. Loki is currently smiling and she asks Kisaragi about what to do next. Kisaragi himself is currently moving forward, and he says that he will continue to move forward and explore the dungeon. Kisaragi stares intently, and he says that his current goal is to get to the boss's room. Kisaragi descends the stairs and looks like he has entered the 5th floor of the goblin attack. Loki, who saw that, immediately sighed because there she felt tired of the current situation. Loki floated in the air and told Kisaragi that she was very bored with the current situation. Seeing there, Loki also pressed Kisaragi's cheek while Kisaragi immediately asked about what Loki wanted. Loki smiled sweetly and said that she wanted a fiery battle that spurred adrenaline. But there Loki said that there were no monsters in that place, and that was a problem because she got bored. Loki's eyes suddenly lit up as it seemed that there was currently a group of monsters coming, and Kisaragi had to defeat them all with the power he had at this point. The monsters that appeared were very numerous, and the possibility of that could happen because now they were close to the boss's room. Kisaragi immediately moved quickly. The head of one of the goblin monsters was immediately cut off because their Kisaragi moved quickly while slashing his neck with the strong power he had. Kisaragi stared coldly and said that the first attack is the key to winning a battle. The monsters that had appeared earlier were now completely slaughtered by Kisaragi. Kisaragi continued to cut down all the monsters with ease, and he did it with his sharp eyes. While slashing the monsters, he began to be happy because now he faced many goblins very easily. Kisaragi continues to slaughter the goblins with his current strength, but even so he still thinks if everything is not enough because maybe his way of fighting is still wrong. Even so, Kisaragi remains confident, and he says that it doesn't matter because he can still win in battle. The goblins themselves are very numerous and are currently continuing to arrive relentlessly at Kisaragi, who is slaughtering freely. It seems that the number of goblins is very large and surrounds Kisaragi, while Kisaragi only stands alone. Kisaragi's eyes began to burn, and he said that the current situation was really troublesome for him. Kisaragi's sword is now immediately flowed by a black aura because he currently intends to release the skills used when fighting Fenrir. Loki, who saw that, was immediately surprised by the current situation. Loki shouted loudly and said that Kisaragi had to stop and could not use that power carelessly. But it was all too late because it was seen that Kisaragi had issued a Vanguard skill that had extraordinary power. A huge explosion occurred because Kisaragi had successfully issued his extraordinary skill. Kisaragi's attack was incredible because it even made the ground there fall apart horribly. Kisaragi smiled and said that it was good because now everything was according to his plan. But suddenly Kisaragi was surprised because now his body suddenly gave off a strange aura that he didn't know. Kisaragi is seen falling to the floor, and there he is confused by what is happening to his body now. Kisaragi looked in pain, while Loki immediately said that Kisaragi was stubborn because he did not obey his words to stop attacking using Fenrir's skills. Loki said that Kisaragi used the god's ability in his very weak human body, so that was the compensation that had to be paid. And Loki said that previously Kisaragi could use that power because of the divine power skill, where divine power increases a person's strength to the maximum level. Loki said that the Fenrir skill can only be used in divine power conditions because its destructive power can affect the body. Loki also informed that now it is forbidden to use divine power and other skills copied from Fenrir. It seems that the powerful skills copied from Fenrir are sealed, and now Kisaragi will not be able to use those skills anymore. Kisaragi was a little upset, and he said that it shouldn't be done by Loki. Loki also said that it was a warning for Kisaragi not to use his ace because it should be used when the fight is about to end. Loki laughed loudly while Kisaragi was upset because now Loki, who was a god, was playing with his life. In the end, the two of them arrived at the gate of the goblin monster boss, and Loki said that the door was very luxurious for a goblin. Kisaragi said if the boss of the goblins is the Goblin King, where he has a summoning skill alias that can summon unlimited goblin subordinates. Kisaragi immediately prepared to enter because he knew that an adventurer had to fight hard, even though he might be in a dangerous situation. The entrance to the place was open. Kisaragi is seen inside, and he says that it looks like the monster boss is now waiting in the room. The goblin boss himself is currently relaxed, and he continues to watch Kisaragi, who has come to his room. Kisaragi immediately readied his sword, and the boss monster immediately stood up and prepared to fight Kisaragi. He seems to be emitting a terrible black aura, and the Goblin King has a level 15, which Kisaragi has clearly never fought before. The Goblin King began to release power to summon his subordinates. Goblins began to appear, and their eyes lit up because they were ready to fight with their king. These goblins continued to stare horribly while the Goblin King is now in front of them as their leader. Kisaragi, who saw that, relaxed there. He said that the Goblin King and his subordinates were no match for Fenrir, so it was certain that he would be able to handle it alone. But suddenly, there was a voice telling the goblins to get angry and rampage. It seems that the Goblin King immediately shouted loudly, and his body grew bigger because he was raging due to the words he heard earlier. The goblin subordinates are also seen at this time. Their bodies become stronger because it turns out they enter into a state of madness. It turns out that the words came from Loki. Kisaragi, who saw that, was immediately confused, and he asked about what Loki was doing just now. Loki there looked at Kisaragi, and she said that it was a test from her, so she hoped Kisaragi could solve it. Kisaragi, who heard that, could only be surprised because he was a little annoyed by Loki's words just now. But in the end, Kisaragi smiled a little, and while watching the raging goblin there, he said that this Loki was really a stubborn, crazy god. The goblins are raging because now the goblins have gone into rage mode due to Loki's power. Loki began to stare at the cold beauty and said that it was a test of her. So she hoped Kisaragi would do his best. The goblin's own eyes are now red, and his eyes stare as if they are about to pop out. The Goblin King's subordinates also went berserk. They groaned loudly because they were now uncontrollable and prepared to beat everything in front of them. Kisaragi, who saw it immediately, preparing to be seen, he moved quickly and now came directly towards the goblins, who were raging chaotically. Loki herself continued to watch the current situation, and there she thought that Kisaragi would definitely not be able to defeat many of the rampaging goblins without his divine power skill. Even so, Kisaragi kept trying. He continued to attack the many goblins by slashing his sword quickly. Kisaragi slashed his sword strongly at the goblin, who was now on the rampage. After being cut, the goblin's eyes lit up even more, and the goblin tried to fight Kisaragi, who had attacked him. But Kisaragi has become stronger, and it seems that he immediately split the goblin into two parts. The other goblins did not remain silent there. They shouted loudly and were ready with their respective weapons to attack Kisaragi. Kisaragi began to move his feet. He immediately launched an attack that hit many goblins at once. The goblins who were hit by Kisaraji's attack were in pain, and even many of them went straight to the afterlife due to his deadly attack. Kisaraji is a little upset there. He said that the goblins are now stronger than before because of the status of anger carried out by Loki. The Goblin King himself is now shouting loudly, and his body is currently purple, as if it will explode because it has unstoppable strength. The Goblin King released his skill again, where he used the summon skill to summon the goblins continuously. Kisaraji could only be silent when he felt the skill, because now in front of him appeared a very large number of goblins. He gritted his teeth and said that the Goblin King's summon skill was very annoying, because it could make the goblins continue to come out in unlimited numbers. Not only that, it was seen that the goblins were also emitting a strong aura because their rage was getting out of control. While attacking the goblins who came there, Kisaraji thought that because the Goblin King was in a state of rage, all those summoned were in the same condition. Kisaraji continues to cut down the weak goblins who come, and he says that he will definitely not be able to win if he does not defeat the Goblin King. Kisaraji also noticed the rampaging Goblin King, and he said that the Goblin King's summon scale should be sealed. Kisaraji pointed his finger, and he said that the Goblin King should stop using his summon skill. It seems that Kisaraji used wordplay where the skill can make other people obey his words. Suddenly, the body of the rampaging Goblin King was filled with chains, and it made the Goblin King a little surprised. The Goblin King did not just give up as he tried to move in order to destroy the chain. With the physical strength he had, the chain was finally destroyed, and the Goblin King could move again very freely. The Goblin King immediately moved quickly. It seemed that the Goblin King was moving so fast towards Kisaraji that Kisaraji was very surprised by what was happening in front of him at this moment. The Goblin King unleashed a terrible power towards Kisaraji, who was shocked and surprised by his arrival. But even so, Kisaraji managed to withstand his attack, even though he seemed to have difficulty, because the power of the Goblin King was very large. The Goblin King immediately shouted loudly, and he threw Kisaraji with his great strength. Kisaraji was pushed back and looks like he is currently struggling while feeling confused about what is happening right now. Loki appeared and said that if the Goblin King was not in a state of rage, then Kisaraji would have defeated him earlier. Loki continues to be condescending, and there she says that Kisaraji currently looks quite pathetic. Kisaraji began to break out in a cold sweat as he said that he was confused about why the goblin's skill was not sealed even though he had used wordplay earlier. Loki also smiled horribly sweetly, then he said that the one who made the goblin's skills not sealed was him. The goblins and the Goblin King went on the rampage again, and now the number of goblins that appeared continued to grow very much. Kisaraji can only stare at the current situation because he knows that fighting many goblins will definitely be very troublesome. Loki himself was there staring at Sanchuier. He said that later Kisaraji would have to fight the gods, so right now he had to overcome the situation that occurred. Kisaraji also remembers Mayu, and he remembers that Mayu was hit by a strong curse where it might have happened by an entity equivalent to God, because he remembered that Kisaraji immediately prepared to fight the goblins. Loki, who saw it, was immediately happy and asked about whether Kisaraji could fight the huge number of goblins. Kisaraji opened his mouth while saying, of course. Looks like he raised his sword, and he said that he could definitely defeat the goblins and the Goblin King even though the monsters were very strong. Kisaraji's eyes looked sharp. Then he said that if he lost an eye, then someone would replace it with another eye. Kisaraji began to move quickly, then seen there, he slaughtered many goblins with the sword he had at this time. The goblins who were hit by Kisaraji's attack immediately screamed loudly because there they felt pain from the deadly attack. Kisaraji did not stop attacking there. He continued to slaughter the goblins while preparing to come towards the Goblin King, who was protected by his subordinates. The Goblin King himself was staring intently, and he continued to emit a terrifying aura towards Kisaraji, who was coming at him. Kisaraji gritted his teeth because he felt quite difficult due to the aura of the Goblin King, and also the goblins who continued to block his way. The Goblin King also began to sweat coldly because there he felt that Kisaraji would definitely harm him. The Goblin King immediately shouted loudly. There he shouted loudly at Kisaraji, who was now running, and he shouted while issuing his summon skill again. Kisaragi, who saw that, immediately smiled, and he said that he was happy because the Goblin King used the skill. Kisaragi immediately stuck his sword. Kisaragi was seen shouting loudly, and he said that now he would take the summon skill possessed by the Goblin King. Kisaragi's imitator skill began to activate. It seemed that the Goblin King's summon skill was successfully copied, and now Kisaragi could use it. Kisaragi immediately pointed his hand forward, and there he immediately tried to use the summon skill he had just gotten. The summon skill is active. Kisaragi's summon skill is active, so it seems that the skill creates an explosion and also a very strong light. Kisaragi began to smile, and he said that now he saw something coming out of his summon skill. A very bright light reappears in front of Kisaragi. Notifications began to appear. Kisaragi himself now looks confused because he is quite surprised by what is in front of him. A cute little dog appeared. Kisaragi, who saw the dog, was shocked because he knew that the dog was Fenrir, who was the god he had fought. The dog, who was the incarnation of Fenrir, smiled sweetly, and there he barked at Kisaragi. Fenrir Mini was there immediately melted towards Kisaragi, who had earlier summoned him. Mini Fenrir there immediately came towards Kisaragi, and she immediately rubbed her body on Kisaragi, who was in front of her. Loki, who saw that, immediately laughed loudly, while Kisaragi felt annoyed because Loki's behavior was quite annoying. Kisaragi himself at this time immediately looked at the Fenrir that he had summoned earlier. While paying attention to the Fenrir there, Kisaragi said that it was the dog he had fought before there. He said that the size was small, but the shape was still exactly the same. Suddenly the goblins shouted loudly, and there they immediately prepared to attack towards Kisaragi, who was with the small Fenrir. Little Fenrir immediately barked, and there he ran towards the goblins, who were very large in number. It looks like the little Fenrir is releasing its power, and unexpectedly, the power is so great that it will now hit the goblins. A huge explosion due to the small Fenrir attack occurred, and it immediately made Kisaragi pause because he was shocked by the power of the Fenrir. Kisaragi began to sweat, and he said that the power of this small Fenrir was absurd. The little Fenrir there smiled, and she wagged her tail as if she was happy with what she had done. Kisaragi, who saw that, immediately stroked his head because he felt happy to be able to summon such a powerful little Fenrir. Kisaragi smiled, and he said if this little Fenrir wanted to fight together with him. The little Fenrir immediately agreed to the sign. He really wanted to be with Kisaragi. The Goblin King himself was still raging, and he continued to shout loudly while emitting a very terrible strong aura. Kisaragi said that the little Fenrir fought the goblin subordinates. It seems that the goblin immediately moved, as well as Kisaragi and also little Fenrir. Fenrir barked strongly and was seen coming towards the goblins, who were quite a lot. Kisaragi himself came towards the Goblin King, and he said that finally now they can be alone and can fight one-on-one. The Goblin King, who saw that, was immediately upset and was seen there he was preparing to launch a powerful attack like the King of Monsters, who was madly rampaging. The Goblin King immediately slammed his weapon towards the east range that had come towards him. Kisaragi himself there managed to withstand his attack, and he withstood the attack of the big weapon only with his small sword. Kisaragi screamed loudly, and he tried to turn the situation around. The Goblin King was pushed back because it turned out that Kisaragi managed to surpass the strength of the Goblin King. Kisaragi's eyes looked sharp. He immediately slashed the Goblin King's leg because he knew that it could make the Goblin King's balance very bad. The Goblin King fell down. The Goblin King now looks in pain because Kisaragi's slash was very painful for him. The Goblin King's eyes were suddenly surprised by the situation. The Goblin King looked surprised because he saw a small Fenrir who had defeated dozens of goblin summons very easily. Kisaragi is getting more confident because now he can fight the Goblin King without any obstacles. Kisaragi looks directly at the Goblin King while pointing his sword at him, while Kisaragi immediately hit the Goblin King, who was right in front of him. There he unleashed his attack. The Goblin King could only stand in pain, while Kisaragi immediately retreated and said for Fenrir to do her strong attack again. Little Femmer immediately unleashed her strongest skill on the Goblin King, who was frozen in pain. The Goblin King is not dead yet, and it looks like the final attack will be carried out by Kisaragi, who is already prepared with his sword and skills. Kisaragi immediately stuck his sword right into the Goblin King's face, so that the Goblin King would go to hell. The Goblin King finally fell, and there was only the dust of his body that began to disappear slowly. Kisaragi seems to have defeated the goblin in front of him now. There is an item left from the Goblin King. Loki suddenly appeared while clapping her hands there. He said that Kisaragi was successful because he had copied the summon skill of the Goblin King. Kisaragi, who heard this, was immediately a little upset because their Loki said that Kisaragi was not proud just because he fought a low-level boss. While holding his item, Kisaragi was happy, and he said that now he could complete the dungeon alone. Kisaragi is currently staring proudly, and he tells Mayu to wait a little longer because later Kisaragi will definitely be able to cure his illness. Loki suddenly noticed a small femur and asked Kisaragi about what to name the small femur that had now become his summoned creature. Kisaragi immediately thought about it because he thought that if it was named Femur, it might be strange. In the end, the little dot was named Rolf, and it seemed that Roof was immediately happy after getting the name from Kisaragi. Roof immediately approached Kisaragi because he was happy. Kisaragi immediately stroked the Roof's head, and he said that now they had to go back, and they could sell the magic stone for money so that later they could eat well. Kisaragi immediately left while Loki immediately followed him while saying that he wanted the sweet food given by Kisaragi later. Outside the Dangon itself, there was a confused guard there. He was confused about whether it was true that Kisaragi had conquered the dungeon alone. Kisaragi also said that if it was true, he gave the monster's magic stone as proof, and now he wanted to exchange the stone for money from that place with. Confused face there, the guard immediately said for Kisaragi to wait, because soon he would exchange the magic stone for money as requested by Kisaragi. Kisaragi could only stare nervously, and there he thought that the guard must be confused by how he could conquer the dungeon when he was still level 4. But in the end, it was all over, as Kisaragi stretched and prepared to go home. But suddenly, Kisaragi was surprised because now there was a commotion going on where he was. It seems that the commotion occurred because there were several people arguing, and the debate was watched by many people. It turned out that the one arguing was Tudo, where Tudo was the one who had previously put Kisaragi in great danger. The person being debated by Tudo was a woman who looked elegant. Kisaragi himself immediately said that the woman was awakened who was called the number 1 teenager. It seems that the woman is staring at Graceful. She is named Hoseganarin, or commonly called Rin, the number 1 teenager of the Hunter Academy. It turns out that Tudo invited Rin to join his party, but Rin lightly said that she was not interested in Tudo. Kisaragi, who heard that, smiled condescendingly, and he said that Rin's words must have been very painful for Tudo. Rin suddenly glanced at Kisaragi, and there she immediately called out to Kisaragi, who was in front of her at the moment. Tudo, who saw Kisaragi, was immediately surprised because he thought that Kisaragi was dead and could not rise again in the world. Kisaragi himself at this time could only pretend to be confused, and he tried to avoid being the subject of attention due to Tudo and Rin calling his name. Rin suddenly came towards Kisaragi while greeting him, while Kisaragi could only greet back with a slightly nervous voice. Kisaragi said that they could have met by chance, but Rin instead continued to approach Kisaragi with certain intentions. Kisaragi was immediately confused because it turned out that this Rin came there because she was looking for Kisaragi, who was in front of her. Rin there said that she was contacted by the dungeon keeper about someone who was still level 4, but could complete the dungeon alone. Rin smiled beautifully, and she knew that the person who had completed the dungeon alone must be Kisaragi, who was considered a weak person. It is explained that this Rin is a classmate of Kisaragi and Tudo. Then Rin is the one who ranks Sat in the Hunter Academy. Not only is Rin great, she is also famous for her beauty, which causes her to always be targeted by the media in Japan. Rin is currently happy to meet Kisaragi, who beat the dungeon alone. Kisaragi himself there was confused about why Rin could know when he had only done it for a short time. Loki also said that it seemed like the effect of the wordplay was over, so the dungeon keeper relayed the information to others. Kisaragi recalled that he had previously used wordplay, and perhaps everything was in accordance with what Loki said. Kisaragi immediately thought that he had done something reckless, while Rin immediately said that she wanted to see Kisaragi's ID card. But suddenly, Rin opened her mouth slowly. Seeing there, he also pointed at Kisaragi and he said that maybe this Kisaragi had something that could not be shown to anyone. Kisaragi, who saw Rin like that, was immediately shocked because he was embarrassed and surprised by Rin's guess, which might be true. Rin was a little angry, and she said that maybe what she said was true, so Kisaragi didn't want to show her ID card. Loki himself teased Kisaragi, and he said that it seemed that now Kisaragi had been captivated by the beauty of Rin in front of him. Kisaragi was immediately embarrassed, and he said that he was not attracted to Rin's beauty at this time. Kisaragi panicked because he had been talking to the lock in his mind, and it immediately confused Rin. Kisaragi started to act normal again, and he said that now he would show his ID card. Kisaragi also took his ID card, but suddenly Tudo called Kisaragi and he said that they had not seen each other for a long time. Tudo came along with his gang, and the three of them came towards Kisaragi while smiling condescendingly. Kisaragi, who saw Tudo, was immediately upset because he remembered that Tudo had previously subjected Kisaragi to a dangerous dungeon. Tudo himself at this time could still smile condescendingly, and he even said that he was happy to see Kisaragi, who was still alive, very freely.